exploding. And could someone explain to me how Alexa already knows what the storm's going to do? This is the crazy stuff with AI and everything that's going on. Listen to this.
Alexa, what kind of hurricane was Hurricane Milton?
From fandom.com. Hurricane Milton was an extremely powerful Category 5 hurricane that caused widespread damage across its path.
Widespread damage across its path. It hasn't even happened yet. And you just heard it say October of 2024.
It has dropped It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour, and it is just gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico, where you can imagine the winds. I mean, the seas are just so incredibly hot, record hot, as you might imagine. You know what's driving that. I don't need to tell you.
A mass exodus, frantic, the fearful flocking, the wise with them. No gas, all brakes.
We have a very stressful, potentially dangerous situation unfolding here in the Tampa Bay area. This is St. Petersburg, and what you're looking at is just a little bit of a slice of the mass amount of people trying to evacuate out of the Tampa Bay area. All of the arterial roads, the interstates, the main highways out of Tampa Bay are jam-packed as people are fleeing. They're trying to escape the path of Hurricane Milton. And what they're coming across are gas stations like this, closed.
At least 20 gallons. I brought this from Atlanta. I didn't just try to hoard gas.
Yeah.
So we always come down with at least enough diesel to get back home, or at least to get back over the line, no matter where it is.
Among the masses moving out, the contractors who rushed in to help rebuild after Hurricane Helene.
A total mess. Can't believe I'm showing it to you, Norm. It's really organized.
Are packing up too. When they return, they'll face an even bigger mess.
Just go ahead and evacuate to something higher above sea level. It's the best thing that you can do right now.
Same nightmare, new storm. Milton's bearing down, forcing millions to ask themselves the ultimate question: stay or go?
Word to give it up. Social Security cut my Social Security check off in June. Said I'm no longer disabled. I don't know what that means. So they cut my check off. Now I have no income. So if I lose this boat, then I'm back on the street again, and I'm not going to do that.
Jay already refused to abandon ship during Hurricane Helene.
How high did the water get during Helene?
It got to about an inch below the top of the pillar, or the pylon right there.
What was that experience like?
I slept through it. It'll be all right in the morning. I go to sleep, I wake up, and it's always better in the morning.
Do you plan on sleeping for Milton?
Oh, yeah. I mean, once the boat's over the water and the wind's hitting me on the nose, the boat's going to be steady, it's going to be in that direction, and the only thing I got to worry about is the wind blowing me around a little bit and the tide going up. I'm not concerned.
At least Jay doesn't have to worry about sandbags.
Guys, back up. There's more coming. You gotta leave room. There is enough sand for everybody. Relax and back up.
So you have St. Pete Police on sand patrol, like literally having to direct people away from the pile of sand because there's so many people that are just desperate to get their bags. ¿Tienes miedo?
Mucho miedo.
Me too.
There's a high likelihood that storm surge could cut this area off from the rest of Florida. So, I mean, I sent my wife out of town with all the important documents and hard drives that I have. And then I had to go through my house and document everything, every item, just in case I do have to make an insurance claim. And that's all you can do. We have to wait to see where the storm goes, but there's the potential this could be the most catastrophic hurricane to ever hit our home here in Tampa Bay. And so I just hope that we all remember items and things aren't important, people are. And so please, if you can, and you are here, get out of the path. It's just not worth it.
Whatever it is, things have to change.
To get home, our driveway's flooded.
You want me to just take you?
Yeah, you want to take me, Merrick?
Yeah. Don't go? All right. I love you guys, but I can't get my picture.
So many great memories in here, Dick. Yeah, we should fuck.
I need a beer for this.
I don't like putting cars on when we're in the water.
We're in a lot of electricity right now, so we should probably get the
We should get out of the water.
Coffin's floating. Oh, fuck. Oh yeah, now it's so much sand on the beach access. Insane. How you can't move that. How you gonna move that? I mean, you got a beachfront property now, huh?
No, I have a beach house.
I was gonna go check on other properties down the beach.
It's a mandatory evacuation, and these things can't be on the road unless they're tagged.
What about a car?
If you got a car, you're gonna get pulled over and cited for being out when there's a mandatory evacuation.
What if we walk out off the island?
Mandatory evacuation. I'll go write a ticket and be done.
I'm saying, how do we
I'll go write a ticket and be done. Turn around, go inside.
He's like, oh, it's a mandatory evacuation. Well, how do I evacuate?
Well, I'm gonna write you a ticket right now for trying to leave. You just told me I either could leave or I could stay, and I'm trying to leave, and you're like, you gotta turn around and go home.
Well, if I get arrested, does that mean I can leave?
All right, Chad, we've cleaned up a lot. All the cars are fucked, but the fire department's on the way. They got to get my Tesla out of the garage because it's making a bunch of weird noises. It was fully submerged in water last night. We had water all the way up to like 4 feet above the bottom floor. If we didn't have a second floor, we would have been fucked. Yeah, the BMW's fucked, the E30 M3. 57 Chevy is fucked. My Tesla's fucked. My other Tesla's fucked. Oh, did I mention that my mom's Tesla blew up earlier today?
Pinellas County, the best in the world. He comes over and helps clean up. Anything for you, Dick. Ow! Oh, did I get you? So the attorney dropped something on my foot, so I need Morgan & Morgan to the attorney.
We're gonna try to make the best out of a shitty situation, so I hope you enjoy whatever the fuck Andrew put in here, and maybe we'll see you guys in the next one.
This storm has copied Helene's movement the whole time because it was trying to form into the Caribbean. They kept putting up 50, 60% chances and going down to 40 or 30. And this thing that we're looking at now has been yellow down to 30% for the last few days. They finally got it right. And I can just hear them saying again, if FEMA hadn't taken the money for HARP to send to Ukraine, we would have already had this thing kicked in. But it's going to backfire on the Democrats because of these mountain people, guys. I'm from the country. It's not mountainous here, but we're tough. Country folks can survive. They will never forget, with this vote coming up, what they're doing to him and using FEMA and Red Cross as an excuse to block other people's. I mean, it should not be up to a vendor that can't even get in there and supply the food, guys. But they're blocking it because it's not vendor approved. I hope the new administration will decimate what we're having to deal with.
Hurricane Helene made landfall in Florida last week and continued on inland throughout the southeastern U.S., wreaking havoc on states like Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Kentucky. To just about everyone's surprise, the mountainous southern Appalachian region of western North Carolina was hit especially hard, despite being several thousand feet above sea level and over 300 miles inland. The devastation in this area that we call home truly cannot be understated and has been largely uncovered by national media, especially when it comes to smaller towns. Chimney Rock and Bat Cave, for example, hang on to their very existence by a thread with virtually zero structures intact. Asheville and Swannanoa experienced unprecedented flooding, swallowing entire neighborhoods and city streets. Huge portions of I-40 and other major roads are destroyed, making the already dwindling supply chain for many basic necessities near impossible to replenish. Aerial supply drops and search and rescue are some of the only hopes for many people left trapped or stranded by the catastrophic effects of this disaster. With some 2 million North Carolinians lacking any cell service, internet access, or power, the disastrous effects of Helene on western North Carolina have been further compounded by a near total blackout in communications, not only causing mass panic amongst those unable to reach their loved ones, but also severely hindering emergency response and intel. Little by little, as some communities regain access to cell service, each new piece of information shared by those in heavily impacted areas paints a progressively grimmer picture. With each passing day, Brandon and I feel more and more grateful to have been in an area that was comparatively spared. While the lake that we live on did rise nearly 20 feet from overwhelming floodwaters, unlike many surrounding areas also hit with similar levels of unprecedented flash flooding, we were so fortunate on Fontana that the lake had been significantly lowered in advance to prepare for these floodwaters. Our hats go off to TVA for managing this watershed so well. There is truly no telling how many homes and lives were saved thanks to their preparation. As y'all saw in last week's video, between this excellent watershed management, our unique situation being on a house that's already floating and equipped with off-grid communication and solar, and a heap of good luck, we were largely unaffected by the catastrophic flooding that so many of our neighbors faced. Our hearts have been breaking as we continue to see a clearer picture of this devastation all around us. It will take years to rebuild many of the highways and towns that are in ruins. This week, we tried to focus on adjusting to this new normal and figuring out how we could help those in need in our community.
All right. Well, since World War II, the United States government have been able to manipulate the weather. That's a fact. You can look it up. Since the 1960s, we've been able to control and even weaponize the weather. That's a fact. You can look it up.
We did it in Vietnam. Yeah.
Exactly. And in the 1970s, the United States Congress put forth a bill to regulate weather manipulators. But first, when Hurricane Katrina destroyed New Orleans and the Gulf Coast in 2005, a lot of people got very rich. I don't know if you know that. That story hasn't really been covered or talked much about. Millionaires, in fact, were made as a result of it. Millionaires were made almost overnight as a result of this destruction. 80% of the land, of course, was destroyed in New Orleans at the time, and all the way up through the Mississippi into Biloxi and everything else was wiped away. Most of it purchased by property developers. And black residents of New Orleans at the time weren't stupid. They knew exactly what was happening to them. Here's a nice paycheck. Now leave and never come back. We'll take your land. Don't worry. Get out of here. Take the town of Point Cadet, a hurricane-battered blue-collar neighborhood in East Biloxi, Mississippi. Homes were totally flattened. Casinos swooped in, bought up all of the land. Casino operators snatched up tracts of land from property owners whose homes were flattened by the hurricane on August 29th, 2005. Now this area, tourist destination, right? And nice casinos, restaurants, nice pier, all of that, nice shopping and everything. No more pesky homeowners with riverfront property. Just like Maui, Lahaina, right? Where massive wildfires took out all the homes, people that lived there for well over 100 years. A lot of generational families in those areas now just wiped away. Perfect tourist destination properties in that area. The people that own those houses, of course, are totally inconvenient. Get out of here. We need this oceanfront property for new resorts. On November 13th, 1946, pilot Curtis Talbot, working for the General Electric Research Laboratory, he climbed up to the top of a local peak, 14,000 feet high near Schenectady. I love that name. Near Schenectady, New York. Talbot, along with another researchers from GE, released just 3 pounds of dry ice into the clouds, high above Schenectady. And suddenly it began to swirl. Suddenly ice crystals formed, and then it started to snow.
Road and Track calls Mazda a unique blend of quality, reliability.
Big snow was a result of that. Obviously, this is not footage from 1946, but this is snow. And it was pretty crazy. This was the first time they had created the first man-made snowstorm just after World War II. Then experiments continued into rain and manipulation of tornadoes and hurricanes, and it came quietly. Then came Project Cirrus, which has been recently declassified. 1947, U.S. experiment along with the United States Navy, the Army, General Electric. They attempted to control hurricanes using cloud seeding. It was aimed at reducing the severity of storms. But guess what? It did the exact opposite, and efforts actually redirected a hurricane right towards Georgia. It's pretty remarkable, actually. You can see look at the path of this hurricane. They started seeding the clouds after the hurricane had already gone through the southern tip of Florida and it was heading out to sea, moving away from Florida. It literally redirected it away from Florida. Then once they started seeding the clouds, look at this. It redirected it back into Georgia, bringing devastation to Georgia. It was gone. It was out to sea. Let's bring it back using our cloud seeding. The idea was to lessen the severity of it. Of course, they did the exact opposite. After this, by the way, GE quit this, said they're done because they were worried about lawsuits, legal ramifications of this. But of course, the U.S. government continued it. The United States Army, the United States Navy continued this opportunity. In 1953, in fact, the President of the United States launched the Advisory Committee on Weather Control. They realized that controlling the weather and weaponizing the weather was more powerful than a nuclear bomb. Why? Because after a nuclear bomb, you render the ground completely useless. But using weather is just a temporary inconvenience. And you can manipulate it in any way that you want. In the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union ramped up their weather manipulation efforts, weaponizing these tools. These superpowers realized that by controlling the weather, they could destabilize entire regions without firing a single bullet. Take Operation Popeye, for example. Get your spinach out here. This was during the Vietnam War. Is a prime example. Through cloud seeding, U.S. forces in Vietnam extended the monsoon season over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, creating floods that hampered enemy supply lines. This was the first real-world application of weather manipulation for warfare. The weaponization of weather. And
but
it
I'm
worked.
sure they don't do that anymore.
I'm sure they don't at all. All the supply lines were stuck on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and the U.S. bombed the shit out of them. They were stuck. Perfect destruction. You can actually still see their craters today along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. All of the bombings that happened in that mud-soaked, in that mud-soaked incident. These programs continued in earnest, of course. The United States and Russia, then the Soviet Union, both explored weather manipulation during the Cold War. The U.S. considered cloud seeding to break up tornadoes or even to induce drought on the Soviet Union. We're gonna dry you up. No food production in the Soviet Union. The U.S. also considered melting polar ice caps to alter climate patterns against the Soviets. Fast forward to today, and we have to wonder, have these programs quietly just sort of continued? Advanced to the point where entire storms can be created or intensified at will? Take Hurricane Helene, for example. On the surface, it seems like, it's just another storm here, right? Another intense storm. But there are clear signs this could be the result of human intervention. The erratic nature of this path, the unprecedented rainfall, we're talking over 40 trillion gallons. 40 trillion gallons of water. Unprecedented amount of water that hit this area. The concentrated devastation in key areas, by the way, very specific areas. It's not just, could it be, nature just acting unpredictably? It doesn't seem so. It's possible that we are seeing modern day weather warfare. An investigative journalist over Into Thin Air pointed out a number of radar beam anomalies. How am I saying this? Anomalies. My God, why? I have one of those moments where you can't say it. Mm-hmm. With Hurricane Helene. Watch this and watch these radar beams, which is stunning.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We are waiting the arrival of major Category 4 Hurricane Helene. This thing is an absolute monster. But take a look at this anomaly that's shooting down almost to where we're going to see landfall. It's very interesting. I'm curious to see if this thing actually lands right on top of where we think landfall is going to be. Now, there's something else kind of shooting out here underneath this layer of moisture over the southeast. It looks like it's coming from either northern Florida or a radar tower in southern Georgia. But the main one right here, look at this big beam that shoots down right to about here. That's where we're expecting landfall, give or take. Now, something even more interesting I want to show you on a more detailed chart. All right, I'll show you once here and then we'll zoom in, but take a look. It's coming from up in this area and it shoots down right to about here where we're expecting landfall. I'll move forward and you'll pretty much see it right away. There it is now. Boom, right here. Okay, so now we're going to zoom in and see exactly where this thing points to, because that is not your normal beam that you see coming from these radar. It's definitely coming from the state of Georgia, probably underneath this mess here. It's coming this way and there's a cross of that other beam either coming from northern Florida or southern Georgia. All right, this is about as close as we're going to get. We're going to see one anomaly.
Yeah. So it's not something to discount and go down this massive rabbit hole Want to go down this massive rabbit hole with patent applications that have been in the works with sound, using sound technology to redirect weather patterns, using cloud seeding, using these types of beams to redirect clouds? Unbelievable. It's not something to discount, especially when the people of North Carolina right now, specifically Asheville, rightly want to know why suddenly there was a massive hurricane that struck their land, bringing 40 trillion gallons of water. Water they say they've never seen before in the state's history. Back in 2001, of course, you have patent application publications for hurricane and tornado control devices. Now, this patent back in 2001 was sort of languished and then went abandoned until it was picked back up again and sold off to another individual. And you can read all of these patents. You can see the different technology, the abstract. A method is disclosed for affecting the formation and or direction of low atmospheric weather systems. Audio generators are positioned to project sound waves towards a peripheral area of a weather system. The sound waves are generated at a frequency to affect the formation of weather systems in a manner to disrupt, enhance, or direct the formation. Okay. Sure, it's all just total coincidence, though, right? But I think Eve for America sums it up nicely with her cup of coffee, questioning all of this. And this is a rabbit hole you can deeply go down if you'd like to. But the people of North Carolina who are still looking for victims today and wondering what happens to their land now that all of these towns are wiped away, will the government swoop in and hand them a check for using eminent domain? Here's all of your money. Here's some money. Get out of here, because there's large mineral deposits underneath your house. There's large swaths of useful resources that the United States government wants, or not just the United States government, but large corporations want, just like we saw in Hurricane Katrina, just like we're seeing in Maui. There are no coincidences. Here's Eve for America. I like this.
Can I tell you what I find suspicious as shit? That one of the areas affected by Hurricane Helene is the world's largest lithium deposit, and the DoD just entered into an agreement with this company right here to mine lithium for electric cars starting in 2025. Now that area is completely devastated. This was a $90 million agreement between the DoD and this company right here to get Kings Mountain, North Carolina lithium mine up and running by 2030. If that area has been inundated, is in a disaster zone, then the government can come in and do eminent domain, and they can pay you what it was worth 5 years ago rather than what it's worth right now. Imagine that your home has turned into a watery lot and the government comes to you and says, hey, I'll pay you what you paid for it. You're gonna take it and you're gonna go, right? What do you think's gonna happen right here now that they want this lithium mine up and running by 2025, 2030 at the latest? Back in 1947, we had the Florida-Georgia hurricane, or Hurricane 9, and it was the first hurricane to be targeted for weather modification. What happened was General Electric, the US Navy, the Army, the Air Force, they poured dry ice into this hurricane using airplanes to see what would happen. Would they slow it down? Well, what happened was it slowed down a little bit, but it turned west really sharp. Let me show you. This is the path that the hurricane took in 1947. Does it look similar to you? Probably not. It's a coincidence, right? Moving on. I'm sure this is just another coincidence, but do you know who owns the most shares in that lithium mine? BlackRock and Vanguard.
Get the heck out of here. You just get the heck out.
You get the heck out of here, Eve.
I cannot.
I love Eve with her cup of coffee. Yeah,
we noticed, you were homeless. Maybe the government offer you to continue to be. How about that?
Right.
That's our
Here's a little
final
check.
offer.
You're
That's
homeless
the plot
now.
of Twisters. I'm sorry if I gave that away, but like
Weather
this
manipulation.
Is
Yeah,
truth
exactly.
as fiction. Okay, can't.
Hey, also too, you could say, well, what's going on? Maybe the Brown Mountain Lights there in North Carolina, not too far from Asheville. Like what's happening there? The mystery of the Brown Mountain Lights for many, many years. So who knows?
Are we?
But we're living in strange times.
Are we starting to realize that maybe BlackRock and Vanguard are not good companies?
I think we're starting to come around on that. Yeah,
is that
starting to get some,
Mr. Luthor.
Like two or three more conspiracies, and I'm going to start thinking that they're probably not on the up and up.
There's no other way I could have done it.
You might be closer to retirement than you.
The early 2000s, they were back-to-back hurricanes that hit. They come up through the Gulf Stream. Of course, that's when we get the rain. I've crossed this actual bridge and water be bumping the bottom. But as you can see, the main current took over and washed this road out. I was born and raised just right up the road at Sunnyview. I live in Green Creek now. I'm trying to get to my 91-year-old grandmother, just make sure she's okay. My father lives up here. His wife's out of town in Colorado now, so it's just kind of, there's no cell service. I can't. And then another thing too is I got a daughter at Western Carolina and a daughter at Mars Hill, and I have not talked to them since 10 o'clock yesterday. So Dad's getting a little excited. There's probably 50 trees blocking my neighbor from coming out. I started helping them yesterday. The neighbors at the other end of the road, we got us out, but the other neighbors are trapped. Our little area and community, when you get the people like us, we work together. We're not stepping over each other. We're not jumping lines to buy the last candy bar. That's the way the world needs. We need community back.
There's a creek behind the apartment that I stay in, and it was flooding the banks and not going under the highway like it should. So I got up, power went out, cell phone went out early that morning, and so there's no way to talk to anyone. Some of the neighbors came and knocked on doors, and we sort of communicated with each other, pouring in the rain. I walked across the street to go check on a house that is a friend of mine's, and the water was at least 10 feet up from where it should be. Water in basements, water pushing boats through roofs of boathouses, debris, just all of people's toys and furniture was just floating out there. It was pretty devastating. I've never seen anything quite like it. I don't think I or anyone else living here expected to see what we saw, the devastation that we saw, except for those, I'm sure, who were close to the rushing water.
Really crazy.
When you turn the corner and you see your community just full of buildings and trash and floating boathouses and floating homes, it just sort of takes your breath away. And it was scary.
I own Lake Lure Marine. We do the marine repair here. We live on the river going out of town, so we kind of see both ends of it. They started dropping lake level a couple days ago, trying to keep ahead of the storm, but it just overran everything. And it flooded at our place maybe 25 feet over most of our property. But the sirens all went off. We kind of knew because the sirens, we lost cell phones, we lost power, everything. we were able to move up to higher ground and stay out of the water anyways. It only was up for maybe 8 hours or so, and then it went back down. We were lucky enough. We got all of our animals out. Everybody got out. It was okay. We got boat carnage everywhere, but that's it. We're living it.
Search crews are combing through the remote mountains in western North Carolina, hoping to locate those still missing and those in need of supplies. Teams from across the country helping with those search and rescue efforts. Private helicopter companies stepping in to deliver much-needed aid, including food, water, fuel, and over 100 donated Starlink satellite units.
We've just been distributing them to local fire departments who we know have been isolated with no comms, and it's fantastic.
In Asheville, the North Carolina National Guard working nonstop to deliver supplies to residents. ABC's Morgan Norwood is there.
These guardsmen have been working round the clock to help get aid into the disaster zone, but with so many roads closed, there's only so far they can go.
Duke Energy says they have repaired more than 1 million power outages in North Carolina, but about 170,000 customers in the mountains are still without power.
We're committed to continuing safe restoration until everyone's power is restored.
Duke says they're dealing with unprecedented damage.
Think about where power lines are normally located. There are easements along those roadways. Those easements are gone.
This substation in Swannanoa buried under the debris.
If we go down a little further, you see an 18-wheeler cargo container wrapped around one of our transmission towers.
Much of the small town, about 20 miles east of Asheville, washed away, homes flattened, businesses destroyed, roads impassable. FEMA has launched a webpage dedicated to pushing back against misinformation about the federal government's response to Helene. The agency tackling rumors like one claiming it doesn't have enough money for disasters, which FEMA insists it does. Alexis Christophorous, ABC News, New York.
Hey Meta, take a photo.
I want to show you something. This is an unofficial list in North Carolina tracking all of the missing people after Hurricane Helene. Every day, people from local communities are feeding into it, updating it, and more of these red missing labels turn to green. But still, today, look at all the red. This community list has more than 1,000 people unaccounted for.
Homes are gone, and that's a big concern for us. Where are those people?
It goes straight to his voicemail. I'm scared.
The question is, why does North Carolina have so many more missing people than every other state hit by this hurricane? And why is it taking so long to find them? Let's go through it.
20 feet above sea level.
At its core, this is a story about water, a massive amount of water. Every single state hit by Hurricane Helene had to deal with some kind of flooding. But the thing about North Carolina is that it had been raining for days before Helene even made landfall. And the western part of the state was already drenched. On Wednesday and Thursday, some parts had already gotten 10, 15 inches of rain. So when Helene rolled around and dropped another 10 or even 15 inches of rain in some places, the ground was so saturated, it just couldn't hold any more water.
Oh, there's
Oh my God.
So you imagine over the course of 3 days, you're getting a month's worth of rain every single day on top of soil that's already filled with water and has nowhere to drain down.
We've had biblical flooding here, and it has been extremely significant.
The other thing about North Carolina is that it's home to some of the highest mountain peaks in the U.S. You can see here, the Blue Ridge Mountains. They run along the entire west side of the state. And when you drop trillions of gallons of water on a mountain, it's got nowhere else to go but down. Just take a look at this video shot in Boone, North Carolina. You can see a wall of water and mud racing down a hill. According to the woman who filmed this video, this mudslide was so powerful, it knocked part of her parents' house off its foundation and tossed a car onto the roof.
My car's gone.
I'm okay. It's okay.
Everything's gone.
It's kind of weird to think about hurricane impacts in such a mountainous region. It's not a common thing, but it actually complicates things a lot. One, it really intensifies flooding because water gets concentrated into certain paths. Two, you get mudslides, especially in places that have these kind of old growth forests that aren't used to hurricanes, which knocks down a lot of trees.
It wasn't long before all that runoff ended up in streams and rivers, completely overwhelming them.
I mean, just from the Shenandoah River right here, that tiny little river just turned into this massive, disaster. It's horrible.
This is the water line. High above my head, I'm 5'5" for context.
In less than a day, the Shenandoah River, which runs through Asheville, rose 19 feet. It was a similar story in Boone, where that mudslide happened. The Watauga River rose about 20 feet. Pretty much every river in West North Carolina overflowed, taking cars, trucks, sometimes entire buildings with it.
Derek Hennessy is describing what used to be his deli. On Friday, he watched from one of its rooms as his deli sank into the river, along with most of Chimney Rock Village.
There were warnings. It was in the forecast that Helene was going to cause flooding in this area. But, one way or the other, I don't think people were expecting the level of flooding that they got. It's hard to imagine how you would have expected it because it's not something at that level that people have seen, I think, in their lifetimes.
And because this all happened so fast, some people became trapped in buildings, homes, cars.
I realized we were stuck at the house. And in trying to save things and everything, the water rose so fast and got so strong that I just had to grab a post and hold on. And when it got up to about this close to the ceiling, I got worried that I was going to run out of air.
Okay, just go. Keep going. Go in. My car's not going. Okay, then we need to get out.
We're like, oh no, we need to get this door open. We need to get this door open.
That woman told NBC that she and 3 roommates were driving down a local highway when the water started rising around them, which is scary enough. But then a tree fell on their car and they couldn't move.
The car was filling in with this murky brown water, so I had no way to, reach into my dashboard or my glove compartment and grab my window breaker. I couldn't see anything. Nobody could see anything.
Then the car starts sinking into the ground.
So it takes all of us to push one of the front doors open, push through the mud that my car is sinking into. and we all just climb out through this door. I just remember like the rip current coming from the water. It was like whitewater rapids. Like it was something you would never imagine. And it sweeps me from underneath my feet.
Now, luckily, there was a group of strangers nearby who ran over to help.
Everyone is like grabbing onto my leg so I don't, go down into the creek or, go off into the current. Like they are trying to hold on to their dear life for me, but like I am like sweeping off into the water.
In the end, this woman and her friends survived, obviously, but things could have played out very differently. And for some, it did.
A storm rages, knocking out power to thousands. This is when electrical line workers are called into action as first line responders who...
We'd heard a report that just a man and woman went out of their house to see if they could get out, and they washed her off the porch, and they went to check on him the next morning and her, and he had just told them that she'd washed away and there's nothing he could do.
And that is the biggest fear for the families and friends of all those people still missing.
I got a daughter at Western Carolina and a daughter at Mars Hill, and I have not talked to them since 10 o'clock yesterday.
It's that level of uncertainty and lack of information that creates a lot of anxiety.
There are more than 1,000 local EMS workers and 1,000 active duty soldiers out looking for the people still missing. But the hope is that at least some of these people are only unaccounted for because they don't have cell service to let their loved ones know that they're okay.
We've had 11,000 requests for people who are trying to get in touch with their loved ones.
Power lines, even backup generators, they were either knocked down or submerged underwater. Some smaller communities still have zero phone or internet connection. For example, last we checked, it was estimated that even Asheville, a city of about 100,000 people, it was still about 90% offline.
They're cut off from the outside world, and the outside world, can't get a hold of them either. And it's very, very frustrating.
So rescue teams are going door to door to see if people are there. But even that's not so simple when some of the homes are still underwater and when many of the roads look like this.
As you can see, this heavy sludge, this dirt turned to mud, making these streets impassable to so many people, especially drivers.
It's not just like, oh, there's a tree lying across the road. The road has been completely washed out. Because the hillside just came down and tore it out. In a mountain town, there might only be one road in or out. And if that's blocked or washed out, then there's really no way to access it.
If you don't have a reason to be in North Carolina, do not travel on the roads of Western North Carolina. We do not want you here if you don't live here and you're not helping with the storm.
Critical bridges were wiped out too, leaving people no other option but to just kind of walk across sketchy wood planks like this to get across.
My mother lives in a nursing home. We tried to get there today and you just can't.
In some of the more mountainous regions, even search and rescue teams have abandoned their vehicles.
We've got horses coming up to get to places we can't access by vehicle.
Yeah, they're using horses and mules to get to some of these areas.
The topography is already working against us with the steep terrain, and you add on the mud, the rain, the water, it's a mess.
They'll just go knock on every single door or look in every single car and mark things, spray paint, orange spray paint, an X on the door, something like that to show, okay, we've looked through here to see if anybody is trapped in here or, possibly dead in here. That kind of systematic effort requires you to get a lot of people into an area all at once.
So even a single hurricane acting in a single part of the country does not hit all states equally. In some parts, they're in their cleanup phase. Some are even starting to think about rebuilding. But in North Carolina, ask their governor, he'll tell you the only priority in that state right now is to find its people.
The U.S. launching military strikes on Iranian-backed militants in Yemen as Iran's supreme leader now issues a dire new warning to Israel. Here's our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, from Beirut tonight.
Tonight, as fears grow of a wider war in the Middle East, explosions rocking the capital of Yemen. U.S. forces attacking Iran-backed Houthi rebels across the country. The Pentagon saying the US Navy targeted 15 Houthi military sites in an effort to make international waters safer after the Houthis started targeting ships claiming solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. This video showing a massive blast on an oil tanker. It comes as Iran's supreme leader warned Israel will not survive. A gun at his side, Ayatollah Khamenei speaking publicly for the first time in nearly 5 years, praising Iran's unprecedented missile attack on Israel, calling it the minimum punishment for Israel's crimes. And tonight, with Israel vowing a painful retaliation against Iran, Israeli forces bombing Beirut. ABC News has learned that the IDF targeted Hashem Safieddine, a possible successor to assassinated Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. No word tonight if Safieddine was killed. Civilians, though, caught in the crossfire.
It's very hard because
American Lebanese citizen Samer Bawab evacuated on a flight to Istanbul. Plumes of smoke visible at the airport.
many people are waiting at the airport all day just so they can get their grandparents out, their mom out, or their daughters out. It's completely tragic.
David, as Israel plans its next move, oil prices have surged in recent days amid reports it may strike Iranian oil production. That could impact gas prices. President Biden today said Israel should consider other alternatives to hitting Iran's oil.